Hi there, Phil from PDX.Gold. Wanted to talk today about our BRP-1 vapor recovery pump, solvent transfer and recovery pump. This is a brand new compressor that we have. I wanted to talk a little bit about the plumbing on here, and specifically what we wanted to talk about today was this is a very reliable and durable pump. The only time that we've ever had customers that have had issues, it's been because they haven't taken care of and kept contamination out of the pump. All of the failures that we've had in the field where the pump stops performing as expected has been because of contamination. So when the pump is new, it turns freely, you can see here, and if you have one on hand, you can, as it pumps, it will pump and it will actually draw negative pressure here. So one of the things that we wanted to do today then was talk about, well, what do I do if I wind up in a situation where I have inadvertently drawn some organic material into the pump? So what we're going to do over the course of our next series of videos, we're going to talk about how that happens, what you can do to prevent it from happening, and we're going to take a look and disassemble a pump and what you can do to get it back up and running in your extraction lab. All right, so one of the things you're first going to do is take off all of this dressing. You don't need any of this stuff on here. We will do some scoping. We have a small bore scope and can look through these. And while this one's new, we do have some still photos of ones that have come back that have organic material in there, and you can see that. But anyways, you'll take this stuff off and clean it. We just use ethanol. We'll also talk about the parts that you need. And we'll talk about lubricants, sealants, other kinds of things that you might need to have on hand to put this back together and do it in a simple and direct fashion. All right, so let me move this one out of the way, and I'll come back with one that we've gotten back from a customer that is in less pristine condition. Okay? All right, so here we've got this pump that we've gotten back from a customer. And as you can see here, this one does not turn. This one has actually drawn in enough organic material that it's coated the pistons in here and hardened and turned into kind of a lacquer. So I did want to say that one of the things that we see is that any piston-driven pump on the market will have issues when it ingests organic material. What happens is that stuff acts as a honey and will start to gum up the tight tolerances in the pistons and other valving of the pump. And then eventually, on some occasions, it heats up so much that it crystallizes, and then when it cools, it hardens such that it doesn't turn. So what we've done here is we've taken this, all of the dressing off this pump. We've pulled off the output, we've pulled off the input, the safety valve, return, cycle, recycle, everything. So now it's just basically a pump. So we've got this here. There you go. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this unit right here. We've got it mounted to a board. And we're going to put this in an oven. And we're going to heat it to probably around 150 degrees for enough time so that it heat soaks. And everything in here is going to heat up to about 150 degrees. And then hopefully what will happen is the organic material in here will soften, and we can take it apart without fear of breaking or damaging any of the components. So if you want, we'll walk back and we'll put it in the oven and get it cooking. Okay, so we're back here in the shop. We've come back to our vacuum oven. We're going to put the pump assembly in here and heat this up to about 150 degrees and let it soak. Probably, I would say at least 4 hours, but I think we're going to give it a good long time. We're going to go overnight, and then we're going to show you how to disassemble it and evaluate what you've got on your hands. Alrighty, so open this up, pull this out. Put this in here. And we're good to go. So this will cook overnight, and we'll come back in the morning and we'll turn it off. It'll maintain temperature. We'll take it out and we'll put it in, and off we go. Before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the tools that you'll need. We'll go over the stuff that we've got here, but a comprehensive list is listed below in the comments. So today, primarily what we're going to wind up using are these hex keys, 3/16, 1/4 inch, 5/16. Those are the three sizes that you need to disassemble and reassemble the pump. You can use these kind here that fit on a ratchet or an impact gun, or you can use a regular T-handle or Allen key, either or. Also, we recommend that you have a dead blow hammer. You want something with a soft face that's not going to damage anything. Make sure it's dead blow, otherwise it's going to bounce around. We also have a screwdriver here and a pick for pulling off the O-rings and seals. So that's one of the things we need to talk about, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we move through the process. You want to be very careful when taking this apart because you want to reuse these parts, okay? Once they're cleaned and if they're in good condition, you can just put it back together and off you go. We talked about analyzing it and addressing it. We typically use one of these bore scopes, small, I think this is 2.3 or 2.5 millimeters, where you can examine the inside of the compressor. And yesterday I had taken off all of these things prior to filming that intro, but I did want to bring them out, and we'll intersperse some still photos and maybe some video of the inside of these, and you can see what kind of stuff you might see if you've indeed sucked in any organic material. All right, let's grab our stuff and we'll go out and get the pump from the oven and take it apart. Okay, so this has been cooking overnight. It's up to 65 degrees C, which is about 150 degrees. And we're gonna take this out and run it into the work table there and start to disassemble it. So let's get it out. Put your glasses on. Make sure you're wearing something to keep your hands from getting burned. 150 degrees is still hot. So let's turn this off and open this up. And okay. All right, let's go in and get to work. All right, so we got this back out of the oven. Before I brought it out here, I did put this pulley back on it, and I wanted to show you that now indeed that organic material that was inside there has softened up enough to move this. We'll talk a little bit about why that's important as we go through here. So we'll take this off and we'll start the rebuild process. Okay, so basically we'll start at one cylinder at a time. I always take these off in a cross hatch pattern. That's the way I put them on as well. I'll look at this on here. There's one. 2. Oops. 3. Here. There we go. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that we can slowly take this apart. There you go. You can see the head come apart like that. So this is going to move off. I'm going to, oh, I forgot to put this over here in frame. Let me get my boxes here to put this stuff in. I always use boxes or some kind of container to collect all the parts. That's a way to make sure that you don't lose them. You've captured them all. So that's I'm going to wind up screwing this out. It's got the all right, there's that one, and then here we'll just slide this one out and do that later. Okay, so here you can see all the oil and material that's on the top of the valve plate there and inside here. Okay, so with regards to these O-rings and whatnot that are in here, you want to be very careful when you pull these off. The O-rings do not move, they're only compression O-rings. So if you take the time to disassemble them carefully, you can clean them and reuse them. Okay, let's pull this off. You want to try and pull this straight off, because as this goo starts to harden and solidify, you don't want to load up the piston rod. The piston rods are made to be loaded axially, stressed axially, not rotationally, so do that. All right, so here's this one. Yeah, it's got an odor to it, definitely. Had some organic material. So let me turn this here. So you can see the piston is covered with this. Let me see, where did I put that? I think I have it down here. Yeah. All right, so let's... Yeah, I probably should have used a more robust wipe than a napkin or Kleenex, but you can see that it's oily and it's very sticky, very sticky. It's not surprising that this did not turn. So what we want to do is we want to take apart both of these while this is nice and warm and still fluid. So let's take this one off too here. Oh, and there's no need to necessarily keep these right side, left side. This is all standardized components for this pump, so you can mix and match. Okay, so here we are, our last bolt. And once again, you can see that there's all kinds of goo stuff in here. This one's maybe a little bit worse. Now this doesn't look like a lot. That's the frustrating part, is that it doesn't look like this person's actually sucked or ingested a lot of material in here. But think about that. This acts as a glue that stops this from running. I'll get that out in a minute. I want to make sure I get this before it hardens. Oh yeah, you can tell it's getting thicker as we go, as it starts to cool. Okay. So here's this one. You can see there's almost a little bit of stuff where as it's heated, it sort of slid down and it's got a bead of material there. All right. Okay, so we've got the cylinders off. This is going to continue to move freely now. We've got access to everything that we need. What we want to do now is take off these seals and rings before they seal on here. Okay. These should flow freely on here, and you can see that they're starting to solidify here. Let's see if we can find the... Okay, there's that. I'm going to take my gloves off. It's cooled off enough now. I don't need to step over there. I can just throw those over on the table. Give me a little bit more dexterity and access. Here's this one. Try and move this around here so that we can see what we've got going on. So these rings here are split. And again, this is a situation where take your time and take them apart with some care so that you can clean them and you can reuse them. These rings on this particular compressor have a sealing ring and then a ring expander, which was that second part that I pulled off. So let's take this, oops, this part off. Yeah, these are very sticky. And then this one. And so these are these ring expanders are really quite light, but they expand those rings to provide a good seal against the cylinder. Make sure you don't distress those or bend those, and you can reuse them. All right, now we've got the piston sleeve here. Similar kind of a thing. That comes off. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wash all this stuff with some alcohol or something, because man, this is gooey, gooey, gooey. Where's this other one here? Yeah, I'll show you this here when I get this one off. Alrighty, so the inside of this is all gooed up, but you can see here, there's resin, extract, oil, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's enough that it's actually pooled on here after we've taken this out. Okay, and then you can see how this is all over this here, and actually down inside the crank on the pump. Oh yeah, it's pooled actually in the case here. We'll show you that too when we get it off. So I'm going to do the other side as well. Okay, so we've got both of the cylinders off. We've got the head, the valve plate, the valve body, and the cylinder for each side. I have put those out there as they came off, but that's okay. Should have worn gloves. That's a safety tip. Hopefully I won't get any kind of contact effect from all this stuff on my fingers, but I'm not going to stop right now and go do that. So with this done, now it's time to move on to taking off the back case here. It's still warm a little bit. So this is, we call this typically the crankcase or the case. This holds the eccentric and the seal that seals up this bearing part. Oh yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. So let's see here. As I recall, I'm going to need an extension. So I'm going to stop this now and go get an extension, and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back. I have an extension here. So we're going to switch sizes. We're going to go from what we were using as a 1/4 inch, which does the bolts for this one. And we'll put that in there to clean that. And we're going to go to 5/16, which holds the 4 bolts on in the back. So as I sort of mentioned earlier, I can see down in here, and I'll show you once I get it off, but there's a fair amount of residue, extracted oil, that's pooled in the back here. So this pump has spent a lot of time trying to pump out resin, oil, instead of vapor. And it's a vapor recovery pump. It's not an oil recovery pump. That's what your extractor's for, is to recover the oil. So in this instance, this is likely due to saturated molecular sieve, inadequate filtration, inexperienced operator, something like that. But the net effect is your extractor has contaminated your pump, and now you have an issue with the pump. So it's not the pump's fault. We're not here to ascertain blame. You can do that root cause analysis later. We're here to figure out how to rebuild this, take it apart, reassemble it, clean it, all that kind of stuff. So let's get on with it. All right, here. So there's 4 bolts on the case on an X. And so let's see here. What you'll have to do is, I guess before I dive into this, you'll have to move this around so that you've got the piston out of the way of the bolt, so that you can fit your wrench in there. You can use this, like I've got here, or just a 5/16 wrench will also get in there and remove these. So let's get this going here. All right. So these bolts are shorter. They just clamp the case to the bearing housing. And all this red, pink stuff here is just Loctite. We're going to work to clean that off when we get there. But that stuff all needs to be cleaned out. We'll need to clean the threads and re-Loctite everything when we put it back together. Okay, so all right, so that's good. All right, so this is, oh, you see it popped off there. That's excellent. And so this is a little bit of the, you can't pull it straight down because whatever you've got it mounted to. Actually, I didn't touch on that. You should mount your pump to a work surface, a board, a piece of plywood, piece of, or mount it to a table or something. Table might be hard because it's a little bit difficult to move. But what you want to do is be able to move stuff around and not have to there we go. All right. Oh my gosh, look at that. All right, I'm going to stop the video so you can come over here and look at this. All right, so we just got this off, and you can see all of this organic material in here. It's actually dripping off the pistons and onto this board that I've got this mounted on. You know, this is a significant amount of residue in this pump. It's not surprising that it stopped working, and it's not surprising that it froze. To the operator's credit, they did shut it off rather than try and continue to start it with the motor. Some of our more advanced models have protection features on there so that if it draws too much current, it will shut off, protects the motor, protects the pump, etc., etc. Some of our more midline and entry-level ones, while performing comparably from a vapor recovery perspective, don't have that feature. So depend on what you need, depends on what you buy. Alrighty, so yeah, look at my hands here. This is gross. All right, so I'm going to pause this while I clean up, and I'm going to get, before I do that though, I should let this drain. I'm going to get a piece of cardboard to let this drain out while it's still warm, so I don't have to scrape it out with a spatula later. And then what we're going to do here is flip this around. We're going to see about taking off this bolt, which is a 3/16, which can be a little bit challenging because now that we've got a bunch of goo down in here, and this is a very tight fit onto the shaft. So we'll work on that next. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so we've got the back case off. We took that O-ring off down there. Again, take care to not damage the O-rings and the seals, and you can reuse that stuff all over again. I did take the time to clean off my hands and grab some gloves. I personally am not an extractor by trade or training, so obviously I didn't think of the glove as a PPE. But I think that's probably something we should put on the list there as far as what you need when you take this apart. Alrighty, so we're going to change this out here. Now we're done with a 5/16, and we're going to use a 3/16. That's this one right here. And we're going to take this off. This is basically, this eccentric here is a powder metal milled piece that is a tight tolerance over the shaft. And basically the thing that holds it in place, there's no key, there's no nothing, is friction from this here. So again, because this has now been contaminated, we may have some difficulty in getting that off. Might pop right off, hopefully, if we're lucky. But just trying to set the stage there if things go south on us. Alrighty, so let's take this off. Okay, and now let's see if we can just slide it off. Oh, hey, look at that. Lucky us. Lucky us. Okay, so again, and so you can see now that this has started to solidify. These normally should be free turning. These should be clacking together like some of those fair clackers. When you've got this much residue contamination inside your pump, it's probably best to consider changing out the seal that's in here. This has been relatively straightforward from that perspective. Surprisingly enough, changing out the bearings and getting stuff out of this, this housing can be a little bit more involved. Hopefully you've caught it before you've contaminated this much. But we'll see where we go from there. We'll clean it up and see how it looks. Alrighty, so I think that's all for today. What we're going to wind up doing though is we're going to take all of these components. This stays in this kind of configuration like this. We don't take it apart any further than this. We're going to let these cool, and we're going to start to soak these in some ethanol to clean them, and we'll go through a series of ethanol baths and scrubbing and cleaning actions that take care of that. Same thing with the bolts and the other seals and O-rings and rings and whatnot. We're going to clean these all up and clean the goo off of these so that they're nice and clean. And then next time we get together, I'll talk about the different lubricants and sealants and lockers that you need to put this back together. All right? We'll see. I'm going to look and see if this seal needs to be replaced or if maybe we can get away with just cleaning it up. All righty? Thanks for watching.